welcome and welcome back to All Things Academic with Aerika, aka Professor Loyd. On this channel, we talk about academic lifestyle and planning for passion and productivity. Before we get into today's content, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the channel grow and it helps the word get out to more people. So thanks for hitting the like button and let's get into it. The topic for today is how long does it take to publish a journal article? And like many things in academia and many things in life, the answer to that question is it depends. It depends on many things. The important thing to think about when you think about how long it takes to publish a journal article is that in comparison to when we wrote papers as students in undergrad or even graduate school for classes, publishing a journal article or publishing a paper can be much more complex and much more time consuming. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 3 scenarios among many scenarios that can start to help you think about how long it might take to publish your journal article. Scenario number 1 is to think about your journal article from idea to publication. That process can take anywhere from several months to several years, depending on the type of article it is, whether it's an empirical article where you're publishing data or a conceptual article where you're publishing ideas. That entire process from just thinking about the idea to designing your IRB or writing your IRB or getting ethics approval if that's something that you need to do, if you have to run experiments, if you have to collect new data, if you have to analyze that data and then write up the data and then submit the article to a journal for publication, that entire process is probably the most lengthy process and can take anywhere from several months to several years. From the idea, the conception of the idea, all the way through publication. Scenario number 2 is where you might have your data in hand. So you've already collected your data, whatever your data are, whether they are publicly available data, whether they're data that you're collecting from experiments or from human participants. Your analyses are finished and you are just writing up the results of that study. In scenario number 2, that process can take at the minimum 2 to 6 weeks. So I've written papers where we had our data in hand and we needed to conduct the analyses and write up the findings that included the introduction, method, results, discussion, and references and tables. That entire process could take you 6 weeks. But it really just depends on several factors. In scenario number 3, your paper is finished, you finished writing the paper, and you're planning to submit to an academic journal. This adds another layer of complexity or time to the publication process. So in the scenario where your paper is finished and you're submitting to a journal, this time frame can vary by a number of factors, including what's the average time for review at the journal, and usually journals will publish this information on their website. So you can go to a journal's website and find out what's their average time for review. Some journals will give you a decision in as few as 3 days, and it could be an acceptance or it could be what we call triage. They could triage your paper. Triage is also called a desk rejection, so it could be rejected by the editor. So you could find out in a matter of 3 days, 2 to 3 days. More typical time is anywhere from a couple months to several months, and in some cases several years, depending on if you go through the review process. So what happens in the review process in scenario 3 is that an editor will read your paper. They typically send it out to reviewers. Reviewers might have anywhere from 2 weeks all the way to 30 days to review it. Once the reviewers have reviewed your paper, then your reviews come back to the editor. The editor will read that feedback and make a decision to accept it with minor revisions, reject the article, invite it to revise and resubmit, and it could be major revisions or minor revisions. It really just depends on the extent of their reviews. And so at that point, the paper could come back to you for feedback, and then you would revise the paper. You're usually given some amount of time to revise the paper and then send it back. So that back and forth could take several years, or it could take several months, or it could take several weeks. So it really just depends on the journal's process, their time to review, their process to publication. There are 2 considerations as we think about how long it takes to publish a journal article. The first consideration is whether or not you're working with collaborators. So collaborators can add another layer of variability to the review process. So if you're waiting for your collaborators to send sections back, or if you are waiting for your collaborators to respond or to write a section, based on their own availability and time frame, that could add another layer of complexity or more time to the publication process. The second consideration is the you factor. So just like our collaborators have their own working styles, their own work ethic, things that may be going on in their life or their own writing styles as well, we have our own writing styles and our own work ethic and things that might be going on in our lives. So I like to call this the you factor. Depending on how motivated we are or how difficult the paper is or how difficult the analyses are, we can also factor into how long it takes to publish journal articles. And there are some guides. There's a book called Writing Your Journal Article in 12 Weeks, and I'll post a link in the comments below so that you can access that book or find that book if you're interested. There are several guides out there. There are also professional organizations or writing coaches that will help you with the you factor or coming up with a timetable to help you get those papers out more quickly. Like many things in academia, how long it takes to publish a journal article really just depends on a number of factors. It's important to know going into the process if it's realistic or reasonable if you can publish an article in 2 weeks before your grant goes out, for example. So it's important to know how long it does take to publish journal articles. So it could take, as I said, anywhere from, depending on all of the different considerations and scenarios that I talked about in this video, it could take anywhere from a few days to have a paper accepted that's been sent to a journal, it's totally complete, or it could take several months or years. One paper that we published that probably took the longest of all the papers that I've published in my career, that paper, the data were collected about 11 years before we actually published the paper. And the reason why that paper took so long to publish was not because of the review process, and it wasn't due to collaborators. That paper really just took a long time to publish because we had lots of other projects that we were trying to move along. So sometimes papers may get put on the back burner or we forget about them. And so sometimes papers may take a little bit longer to get, and we prioritize them for other things such as grants or research projects. So it's possible for a paper to take 10 years to publish. I've heard of papers taking 5 years to publish. It's not uncommon. So I hope I've said something valuable today. If you like this type of content, if you like learning about academic topics, like, subscribe to this channel, and post your questions and comments below. How long does it take you to publish journal articles? I would be really curious to know how long it takes people to publish. Share this video with a colleague or a student who's also thinking about or wants to learn about how long it takes to publish a journal article. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.